Hello and welcome to a new, recently released early access game called Flyout. This is an aircraft builder, so I guess I'll hop straight into the editor and we can create a new craft, and now I can get started. But what should we call our beautiful flying machine? Well, I thought back to my Kerbal roots and named it Untitled Aircraft. Here you can see me designing the fuselage. The builder was actually quite intuitive. I heard some complaints on Steam about there being no undo tool, but I was just really careful and never had to worry about it. For our design, I wanted to go with an old, maybe late World War II prop fighter, which was incredibly stupid. It turns out that prop planes are about the hardest things to make in this game. After a lot of designing, I was finally able to test our engine and actually got it running decently. As you can see, we also have a radiator. The fuel is stored in the wings, and this gave me a lot of hope that this project would actually be successful. Back in the editor, I finished up the front of the fuselage, and I started building a cockpit for the pilot, a little glass overhead, and I got to mess around with the material settings, which was pretty interesting. I also made these kind of inlets on the side of the plane near the rear, and that was for our radiators, for our engines, because I thought they really needed a dedicated place to be. Then I started placing down wings, and the wings actually have built-in control surfaces unlike KSP, and it was actually really intuitive to get them to work. You just kind of click on them and then set them to the controls that you want. Of course, after the wings are done, I decided to put the landing gear on. But now it's time for our first runway attempt. So here we are out on the runway. And it doesn't look like our engine's even on right now, so I'm going to have to click in here, click ignition. Alright, now that the engine's on, I'm going to give it some throttle, which I have to do to keep it running. Alright, seems like we're idling pretty good. I'm going to bring up the throttle, and we're going to see if we can get moving. And you don't seem to be producing too much thrust. Well, our propellers aren't spinning very fast, so I'm going to have to adjust the transmission. Alright, I guess I'll bring it up to max throttle, and we can see what happens. Alright, at max throttle, here we go. Propeller's well over 1,000. We're actually moving. Oh, wow. We're barely producing only a few horsepower. And we also have, on the engine, this big pre-ignition problem. And I don't really know what that means. But eventually I decided to replace the ethanol that we were using with aviation gasoline. And this did the trick. I also angled our propellers more, and suddenly we were producing a ton of thrust. Ooh, take off, take off, take off. Alright, you got it, you got it. The plane is pulling a ton to the right. I'm going to try and use my trim to level it out. And after I used my trim to level out the flight, the plane actually flew perfectly. Turns out that the engine is putting a huge torque on the vessel. Also, the pre-ignition problem was gone. However, our propeller angle was still not nearly optimized for this speed or this altitude or the speed we were spinning the blades at. This is why the propeller engines are so complicated. Eventually I decided to come in for a landing. I didn't really know how this was going to work. Alright, here we go. Oh, no. Oh, brakes. I guess that works too. And now I present you with the failed takeoff reel. Eventually I decided that if I wanted the plane to be going anywhere at any rate of speed, I'd have to do some engine modifications. This is another reason why this type of propulsion is so complicated. At this point I decided to do another flight test, and this time I got off the runway very nicely, almost clipping my wing, but don't worry about it. I'm getting the hang of taking off this plane. However, we still weren't going anywhere at any rate of speed. I want to be going around 150 meters per second, not 60. Came in for a landing, and brakes. Okay, I think our propeller just broke brakes. Alright, I think I need to make the brakes a little bit weaker. But the plane was at this point flying great. And I decided to do a stall test, and the plane didn't actually go into a spin, it just put its nose straight down and crashed into the ground. Luckily, our pilot was still good for more death runs. Later, after some super complicated optimizations for the propellers, I was actually able to get the plane up to over 160 meters per second, and even attempted another landing. Yeah, I think the brakes still need to be a little bit weaker. But now, I present you with the final product. I even took the plane into the painter and made sure it looked all good. I really like how this project turned out, and as you can see, the plane's actually gonna fly pretty well. I'm gonna give it a bunch of gas, and we're gonna start flying down the runway. I of course made sure to trim the control surfaces before we left. That way takeoff won't be too difficult. As you can see, the rear wheel lifts off the ground, and when I pull up, the plane will take off, just like that. It actually flies really well, and I had to make some minor adjustments to the trim, but after that, it flew great. And we were already up to 85 meters per second, much faster than any of the other attempts. We were even able to gain speed in a constant climb of nearly 10 degrees. Eventually, I accelerated to over 90 meters per second, and we kept accelerating. I'm extremely happy with how this project turned out. I mean, I'm at over 140 meters per second right now, and at almost 5,000 feet, and the plane is still flying perfectly. It flies really stably, there's no problems. I think I really did a good job here. And I'm going to keep flying it until I'm, bored. Alright, I think I'm bored. So let's see how fast this thing can really go if we put it into nosedive. Alright, pilot seems like he's getting a little bit sick, but our speed is shooting through the roof right now. Okay, I'm gonna pull up once we get close to the ground. Yeah, look at that, and I'm gonna use the trim to do that. Oh. Now this thing actually flies even better at higher speeds. I mean, it's really zipping along here. Okay, I think I'm gonna do a super low pass. Here we go. Real nice. You know, for a complete noob, I think I did pretty good, especially considering this is my first design. I really can't wait to do stuff with jets, because I think I can have more fun with those. Alright, coming for a landing. Okay, the idea is to just put it down on all three all at once. Alright, front wheels first, maybe? Don't want to slam on the brakes when I come down though, because otherwise I'll nosedive. Every time I get close to the ground, it pushes me up again. Alright. Okay. Maybe I'm not the best pilot. Jeez, this thing's just going forever. Might use the entire runway. Alright. Okay, now we're down. We're down, I think. Let's hit the brakes, just tap the brakes. They are a lot weaker, so we're not going to face plant. And I'm going to bring this thing straight to the center line. Very awesome. And the rear wheel has steering, but not the front wheels. Alright, and stop. Excellent. Wow. Yeah, this worked really well.